You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Tonight's account comes from a hunter who spent decades in the swamps of Florida. Thanksgiving morning, two figures stepped out of the palmettos, but one of them was holding something no hunter ever expects to see. This is one account you definitely won't want to miss, so stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, you've got the privilege of talking to Stephen today. Stephen is a traditional bow maker from down there in Florida. He's got some really interesting things that have happened to him over the years, so it's a privilege to have him on the show today. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's not too hot up here in Iowa, so we're enjoying it. We're out of the corn sweat stuff, so if people know what that is. But, you know, I'm going to go ahead and pass things over to you, Stephen, so that you have the time to share what you experienced. I can't wait to hear about it, man.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. It's funny you mentioned corn sweat. I'm in Indiana, and that's where I moved to. And, oh, Lord, we got so much corn here. It's crazy. A little bit about me. I was born in Massachusetts and lived there for up until I was 18 or 19 years old. Growing up, I was kind of like the Daniel Boone kid. You know, I love the woods, spent a lot of time in the woods and the swamps and doing all kinds of stuff. And was always interested in the outdoors and stuff and hunting and fishing and stuff like that, which my parents did not like me hunting. We moved to the Great Woods in Norton, Massachusetts, in a little cabin, and we lived there, I don't know, for 5 or 6, 7 years until I moved away. I was in a band, and the guy said, hey, let's move to Florida. So I just turned 18 or 19. I think it was in 79. And, so we went on the road and went to Florida, and I stayed there. And I lived in Florida for 43 years. And from there, the music career, about 30 years into that, I injured my ears on a show and started realizing that, the music industry is complicated. And I spent my whole life wanting to do this. And I realized that, well, I better have a plan B, So I started doing a lot of things in between. I started my own business in 83, furniture service business, finishing mostly. I became a focused, did that for quite a few years, did upholstery and service repairs on various pieces of furniture and whatnot. Plus played in the band. And then I started making bows in 2004 and between 2000 and 2004. And, I was really passionate about it, started making them out of wood and all that. But I just kept doing it and doing it. And finally people were like, hey, these are nice. I want one. So that was a supplementary income for me. So I just continued to do that. And that's where I'm at today. Pretty successfully and very happy I have what I have. So I've been into hunting quite a bit my whole life, mostly bow hunting. Started off with compound bow and then got bored with that and went with trad. And the place where I saw this is Three Lakes Wildlife Management Area. And before I get into my sighting, I want to back up to Massachusetts again. Me and my sister and I were walking through this woods, and it was massive, but there was a trail going right through it, through the middle of it. And we were always out there playing around. And it was snow on the ground, probably about 6 inches. And we decided to walk out into the woods one day, and I seen these footprints. And they weren't really big, but they were people footprints, and it looked like barefoot. But they probably maybe a 12 or a 10 in size, my guess. But they were exactly right in front of each other, like step, 4-foot step, and it was just like a line. That's what made me look at it, because whatever walked didn't walk zigzagging like a person would do or an animal. They were all in a line. And I asked my sister about it. I said, what do you think that is? She goes, I don't know, So anyway, I never forgot that. Didn't know what it was. And moved on and lived my life and whatnot, moved to Florida and started hunting at this place at Wildlife Management Area. And I had that place probably 15 years straight every year. I'd spend 3 weeks out there every year during bow season and in gun season too. And I had some things happen a few times. There was this one place that I used to love to hunt. It was a swamp. And I don't know the name of it. I know it was a slough, and I want to say it's Johnson Slough, but it's not that. It's some other weird name, which I can't remember. Very spooky swamp because you had to wade through this and know where you're going. I kept a trail cut so I wouldn't get lost. And there was an island out there, probably about 2-3 acre island. It was a high spot. It was full of live oak trees, big, huge ones. And it was a great place because the bucks would go out there and bed down and stuff. So one time I'm out there, and I used to go out there alone. I always had the spooks going out there. I would never go out there in the dark. I would always wait till the sun just started coming up. Then I would hit the swamp, and I had to use hip boots most of the time because it was deep. And there's, water moccasins and alligators and pigs and everything else out there. So it's a little bit spooky. I get out in this place, and I'm sitting in my stand. Probably, I don't know, about 10 o'clock, I hear this huge crash on the island. I felt it. And I was like, dang, wonder what that was. I knew it was a tree, but so it just kept bugging me. So I ended up leaving early. Probably I stayed another hour or so, and I ended up walking out. And I get about 50 yards from my stand, and I see this huge live oak branch, green, probably 12 inches across. And live oaks grow, they have big branches that are low, relatively low. But this one was about 12 feet up. I couldn't reach it. It was just completely snapped off right at the tree. And I looked at it and I said, man, there's no termites in this. There's no carpenter ants. And I'm like, wonder why this broke. And I mean, it was a big branch. So I'm like, So I just left. Didn't even think anything, I'm moseying on out of there. And kind of told the guys back at the camp something weird happened to me. And that was about it. Not too long after that, it might have been the next season or it might have been that season. I'm not sure, but I was hunting in the same slough, but about a mile the way the crow flies, opposite of which way the creek runs. And I was approaching it, and the wind was blowing right where I was approaching, and I knew that was wrong, but I had to ease through there to get to where I was going. And as soon as I hit the tree line, which was basically saw palmettos and cypress trees, very thick, you couldn't see in there, I heard this huge just take off through the swamp. And that scared me because we didn't have bear and, we had pigs and deer and stuff like that. But this was like a person. You could tell it was a bipedal because it was boom, 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 snap. And it was breaking these big downfall timbers that it was jumping on, and deer just don't do that. And it ran very deep in there. I actually walked in there a little ways to see if I could get an eyeball on what this was. But I never did find out, but it freaked me out. So I left there immediately, went back to the camp, talked to I used to hunt with the same people. I'm like, man, you wouldn't believe what happened. And they're like, oh, it could have been a bear, blah, 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 blah. And I never seen no bear tracks, no bear out there. And I was always in some pretty heavy areas. So whether it was or not, I don't know. But so I just kind of wrote that off. But I think it was the next season. I didn't see a whole lot during archery. It was gun season. And my friend Jim and Becky, good friends of mine, used to hunt with them all the time. It was Thanksgiving Day, 1995. And I had my family there, my wife and kids. And, she had her husband there and her dogs and all stuff, and we're camping out. So Jim and I decide we're going to go hunt until noontime. Girls will be cooking and all that. So we get out in the swamp early before the sun gets up. We didn't really see anything. It was and the climate right then was dry. It was hot and it was dry. Not real hot, but Florida's hot, but it was dry. We had a drought, so the swamp wasn't full. And I remember coming out. We were rifle hunting, and of course, Three Lakes management area, you have to use a orange vest and a hat and all that stuff. So my Bronco was parked down this fire trail, and in about 20 yards. And down the road, there was about 150 yards. There was an overhang of live oak. It looked like a tunnel. It was a really cool spot. So I went up to my Bronco and I unloaded before I unloaded it, my window on my Bronco made a huge squeak all the time, my electric window. And it's just going, Rah! Jim's laughing at it. He goes, well, there ain't going to be anything around here now. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. So I unloaded my stuff and I walk out to the road. Now, Jim, he's unloading his now. And I see this dude walking down the road sideways, like away from me on an angle going into this big palmetto patch, about 150 yards. And from head to toe, this dude, I call him a dude, he looked buckskin. It was like a orangey red color. And it didn't look like a ghillie suit, because a ghillie suit is bulky. This wasn't bulky. This thing was really tall, like maybe 7 foot, but it was lanky looking and long arms. That's what was weird to me. And I said, Jim, look at this dude. And he comes out and he looks at him and he's like, dang, you don't have no orange on. I'm like, yeah, he's crazy. I said, what kind of suits he got on? And then he kind of eased into the palmettos. So we're standing there looking, going, And all of a sudden, right where he walked in, this other one walks out, but it walked straight to him. It wasn't going diagonal down the road. It walked straight out and went right in the middle of the road, and it stopped and looked up and seen us looking at it. And I'm going, whoa. And it was jet black. It wasn't as big, but it was big and had a big fat belly. And you could see the breasts on it from that distance. It was no doubt it was a female, because I remember Jimmy's like, that's a dang gal. And I'm like, he's like, I think that's one of them dang swamp apes. And I'm like, oh boy, what? And we're looking at this thing, and it was jet black from head to toe. Now, I couldn't see any features other than a big belly that she was holding, and I could see her breasts. Couldn't make any facial features or anything like that. But when she seen us, it was like an old crap moment, You could see the reaction. As soon as she seen us, she just like grabbed her gut tighter and just started, and she ran bow-legged like she couldn't run right because of what she had around. And I think it might have been like a baby around her waist, or she was just very pregnant. I'm not sure. But she ran into the palmettos where the other one ran. And meanwhile, Jim and I are going, what did we just see? There was hair on them things, and we're sitting there. We're just like, whoa. So we go, let's go down there. So we went down there. We drove down there, we pull up and a sidearm, but that didn't even enter my mind. I walked in there a little bit. Jim's behind me. He goes, Steve, I'm not going in there. And I said, yeah, I think you're right. He goes, the hair's on my neck standing up. He goes, when that happens, I listen to it. I'm like, all right, I agree. So we're sitting there out by the car, out in the road. We're standing there, actually. And this guy drives up. And I guess he was behind us down the road quite a ways. He pulls up and he goes, hey, what was that in the road? And I look at, and I got this, because by now it's starting to sink in that I just saw something weird. And the guy's like, they had hair on them, right? And that just nailed sealed the deal for me. I like, yeah, it looked like hair to me. He goes, no, he goes, it was hair. I was scoping him with my rifle, and he pulled his gun out. He had this big old scope on it. And I was like, well, I think they're swamp apes. And he just laughed. He goes, well, I wouldn't doubt it. And he just drove off. And Jim and I, meanwhile, we're wide-eyed. Like, we got this, we call it moon eye, where you just round eyes. You're like, oh, man, I got goosebumps right now just talking about it. It comes back. And funny, these kids pull up. There's about 4 of them. Y'all see anything? And Jim goes, well, we just saw 2 swamp apes. You should have seen these kids. What? And I'm like, yeah, we just saw 2 swamps walk across the road. They went in that swamp. And, man, they got out of there quick. They're like, can't say what they said, but now we're leaving. So they just drove off. But anyway, so we get in the truck. We went back to camp. Now, we have to go through a check station. And you got to fill out a card. And Jim's looking at me like, you going to write it down? I said, yes, I am. They want to know what I saw. So I wrote it down. And the check station guy looks at it because he always looks at him. You guys been start drinking kind of early, haven't you? And I'm like, sir, we haven't drank a lick. And he looked at us, and I said, y'all got some stuff out there that's weird. And he's like, well, all right. He just, he didn't believe us. So I left it at that. We just drove off, went back to camp. And, oh, man, when we got back to camp, I remember Jim walking up to Becky. He's like, Becky, we just seen swamp apes out there. And Becky's like, oh, man, you guys are, he was saying, she said BS. You guys are BSing me, man. You didn't see. And Jim's like, Becky. And you should have seen Jim's face. I mean, he was just white and wide-eyed. And I said, Beck, look at him. Is it normal to you? And she started, mellowing out a little bit. Now, I told my wife believed me immediately. She said, wow. Well, did they come after you? And I'm like, no, it was a, I don't know, circumstantial. We were in the right place at the right time. The first one didn't even see us. But these things are real. And I'm just like, whoa. And needless to say, it tormented me. And it tormented Jim. Becky would not go out in that swamp hunting again. I went out there 2 more times. And I had the bad vibes out there because I started putting all these things together that had happened out there. 2 things. It was them. And they were warning me or trying to scare me out. So I left 3 tree stands in there. I never went back in there. And last time I went in there, I was with somebody. And I told them, I said, I'm done with this place. I'll never come back here again. And so in between that, I contacted the BFRO and, made a sighting report and all that. And they took Jim's name out of there. I don't know why. But anyway, one of the girls come out and met me. We walked around, went back in there, and it was some interesting things that we found, but nothing, no footprints or weird stuff. But we did find a couple of branches twisted off, and we found a few drops of blood on some palmettos, which was kind of weird. But other than that, nothing. Very dry, pine straw ground, no evidence. And kind of left it at that. She was very nice. And I said, well, you probably walked up on a family pot or they were just passing through or whatever. And so I just kind of left it at that and stopped hunting out there. And meanwhile, I'm having anxiety about this, and it's really bothering me. Now, again, they did not threaten me. I'm threatening myself because of what I've been taught. And this opened a huge rabbit hole about my education, about what I've been taught in life, where I come from, my origins, what I'm supposed to eat, medical, everything. Just, this is where I woke up. And I started investigating and talking to people and listening to stories. And I'm going, there are thousands of them. This is real. This is absolutely real. So how I dealt with it is I'm not going in any state forest anymore alone. I don't want to go out and confront these things. And I know from my experiences listening and learning that, they're not, most of them are pretty passive, but some of them are aggressive and they will hurt you and fully capable of doing it. And I don't want to have to get in a fight with something like this, because I'm probably on the losing end of it. And I don't care what you're carrying. I have no military training. I'm pretty good with a bow, but don't even enter my mind. I was growing up pretty ethically. My father, the way he taught me, and so I was like, well, these things are wild, and I have my own idea on what I think they are. But so when I moved to Indiana, which was 43 years after I moved to Florida, my wife's parents passed away. They left some property to her, and she's like, well, it's time to move here. We got to either move or, get divorced or something. And I was like, well, okay. So I moved up. I was running my business up there or down there. And so I moved here. So that was a big deal. But the year before I moved here, because I would come here hunting for quite a few years. It's better hunting for me anyway. Colder and, I don't know, more open. Anyway, I'm getting out of my tree stand on this property. And there was some frost in the ground. And I see this big, huge footprint. I swear, when I saw this, my words were, are you effing kidding me? And I said it out loud. And I looked down. Now, it wasn't like the perfect footprint, but you could tell it was a footprint. And I still have the picture. I just have to dig it out of my cloud. But I put my foot in it backwards. That's how much messed me up. I put it next to it. I took a picture, and I just got out of there. And it was only one. And I go back and I tell my wife, I said, you're not. And I told my father-in-law first. I said, Stan, I think we got squatches out here. And he's like, oh, yeah, you think so, huh? I'm like, I just found a big old footprint right near my stand. And he's like, well, we got some big farmers around here, I said, well, I don't know. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to let it slide. So that was that. But this is pretty much where I'm at now. I've been living here about 3 years. We don't have a lot of sightings around here per se. There has been some within, 15-mile radius, but we live in a very rural area, spotty forests, ridge lines, and I know these things can travel and do whatever they do, but now some of the state forests around, definitely there's been sightings out there. And I used to hunt out there, and I won't go out there alone anymore. I just don't want to be confronted with one of these. And now, I'm good now, really comfortable in this area, hunting in my little wood lots. And we got 30 acres, and I can hunt here, or my buddies have some leases, and I don't really feel any threat. But I'll tell you, when I'm walking in the dark, I'm 65 years old, and I still get the heebie-jeebies if I can't see. And I seen something online the other day where these contact lenses where you can see in the dark. Yep. I'm like, man, I think I get me a pair of them because it might come in handy. But anyway, Jeremiah, that's, and I know it's not an exciting sighting. It's not scary because some of the ones I've listened to are just absolutely petrifying. And I'm sure you want to know what it looks like and all that stuff. And I have my opinions. Are there any questions you have to me about this? I'm sure you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is, in my opinion, it's a very unique one. I don't think I've ever heard one where there's a potential of it being pregnant. That's a brand new one for me. Before it gets away, I heard about those contact lenses too. And did you see? This is all like allegedly, but what they were experiencing when they're testing them?
Oh, well, no, but you know that blue glass, there's a name for that blue glass that the military used to use. I guess they outlawed it. What is that glass?
So I don't know the exact name, but it's pretty much what was happening when they were using that same type of deal over in Vietnam. They're starting to see stuff. It's the same deal. Now, this is all allegedly, but it makes for an interesting thing to think about for sure. Now, definitely want to talk about your Florida sighting. It's just absolutely incredible. Were there any weird sounds or smells in that same time frame that you were down there that you noticed?
Nope. No, but you got to think before that, I would smell something in the swamp or whatever, and you know, there's dead stuff around, and you know, I it would have went right over my head. Now, if I smelled a skunk, because some people call them skunk apes, but no, I didn't. We didn't smell anything. There was no residual of it, and you know, I wish there was, but. And you know, Jim didn't see anything. We didn't see. We seen right where they went across the road, but you just couldn't see anything. It was so dry, no imprints or anything. So
absolutely, and
I wouldn't classify these creatures. At least the ones I saw, they weren't super heavy and super big. You know, the I say the male. I don't know that it was a male because I only saw he come out with his right shoulder facing me on an angle, going down away from us. So he didn't even see us. He didn't even look down the road. He just entered out on the road and started walking down. His gait, the way he was swinging them arms, and you really couldn't see a separation between his head and his shoulders. I don't know if that was hair, but it wasn't a person. You know, I've had people call me about this back then. I think I actually did that. I don't know if I'm supposed to say his name. And I just told him, because he goes, "You think it could have been somebody in a suit?" And I said, anybody that wears a suit in a wildlife management area during gun season is an idiot. I mean, this place sometimes had 300 hunters on it. Now, it's a big place, you know, 40, 50, 60,000 acres. I'm not sure the total, but it's around it. It's huge. And there's no houses out there. Plenty of food, plenty of water, plenty of mosquitoes. So, I don't know, man. It's an enigma to me, but as I've gotten older, I know what it was.
Right.
You know,
right. You said that. So we'll just say the male and female. So the male was around 7 feet tall. Can you remind me how tall the female seemed to be?
She looked like she was 2 feet shorter.
Okay.
But she was just stocky. You know, her chest and her belly. And whatever was on her belly was round. It wasn't food or stacks of wood or a bag. This was the same color as her. So whether it was an infant, I don't know. But when she wobbled off, she was holding that belly. And I'm trying to think of how to describe how she ran. And the only thing I can think of is if you've done number 2 in your pants.
Right. Right. Yep.
Because I had children that have actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's not the only thing I could think of. But she wobbled off like that, and but you could see the reaction when she seen us. She went, "Oh no!
Oh no! Got to get whatever this is out of here." Kind of, you know.
Yeah.
And
we were there within 3 minutes. We were down there.
Wow.
So they were in there looking at us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Man, I'd say it was a right call not to go in there. That probably would have gotten really bad for you if there was a young one being protected in some way.
I agree.
So carrying something on her stomach, was that thing, whatever was being carried, was that covered with hair too?
It was the same color as her.
Okay.
So I would say yes.
Okay.
That's why I think it might have been, her being pregnant. I couldn't see any definition in head or arm going around her waist. I couldn't see that. It just looked like one color. So, I don't know what these things do if the babies ever. I've heard of people saying that the babies crawl on them. So maybe so. I don't know, but she definitely. It was something to do with either being pregnant or had been pregnant. I think that's just
absolutely.
as a hunter and an observer. And bear in mind, I was quite a bit younger. My eyesight was perfect, and I'm experienced in seeing things. So there's no way this was a bear. There's no way this was two people playing a gag on us. No way. I just completely disagree with that. And I thought about this for years, maybe. And I guess there is the maybe, but logically, I don't think so. I think this was and look, I'm not the only one that have seen him out there. That's the other thing. I didn't meet this guy, but I read his report. And he watched one for a half hour in his tree stand. And there's other places out there. One of them was called Island Pond. That's a big island in this swamp. And I think that's where he's seen his. But there's other people that seen him out there. I talked to a guy one day that said he saw a giant barefoot footprint out there one time. And this is, after I had seen it, asking questions. And, most people laugh. I ain't seen any of that. They're crazy. All my friends, they've hunted their whole lives. I've been hunting, 30 years. I never seen, that's nuts. And I'm like, all right.
So this account that you read about this gentleman, was that on BFRO then, or? Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. And you could probably, whether it's a year after, it might even be the same year, 95. You're going back a long ways, and things have turned digital now.
So your report got put up there too, then you're saying?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to see if I can check that out at a later time.
Yeah.
So we already know that you weren't able to see details of the face, but were you able to see like a shape of the head at all?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've thought about this a long time. It didn't look like an ape, okay? It looked like a caveman. That's what it looked like to me. And I told Jim that. I said, Jim, didn't that look kind of Neanderthal? He's like, yeah, it kind of looked like cave people. So that's what it looked like to me. Now, of course, my depiction of a cave person is what I learned in the Boston Museum of Science, walking through and look at the cave people. They were small. It's not exactly the same, but let's just say Neanderthal. That's what it looked like to me. And, I have my views on what I think it is. I'm just going to say it. I think it's the missing link. Or you want to call it Nephilim? I think it's part of that too. And, you might have to take that out. I don't know. But that's just look, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that's my gut feeling. Because, we're not been told the whole story here about everything. You know that. So somebody's hiding this. Now, why? I mean, it's one's only guess. But these have been in the forest for a long time. Now, is this an earthly thing? Is it extraterrestrial? Is it extra dimensional? I don't know, man. Maybe. Wouldn't surprise me. But, they definitely can materialize. So they look real, and maybe there's different ones. I don't know. I know there's, like the Dog Man and the Patterson Gilman one, Patty. And so there may be different versions of it. I don't, that's just my feeling. But these look like Neanderthal people. That's what they look like to me. They didn't look like apes.
That's fascinating.
Now, if I got close to them and seen, their face, their teeth, their nose, everything, I might have had a different perspective on that. But my observation from the distance that I was at and my partners were that they looked like cavemen. And they didn't look human. Now, the male, definitely his arms were way longer than ours were. Because the way he strolled, he just had his arms went way out in front of him when he was just easing, but you could see his arms swinging real low by his knees. It just looked odd. So, and his color looked just like buckskin. The same color as the deer, kind of a reddish, orangish.
Were the female's arms hanging low as well?
Yes, because they were underneath her stomach.
Okay.
So yeah, but you could tell she had them underneath her stomach when she started. And when she came across that road, she was holding her stomach. Because that was the weird part. I'm like, what she got? We're thinking she had something like a pig or something. But it wasn't anything defined like that. It just looked like the same color as her. It looked like she was pregnant. And Jim even said it. That's a dang gal. I'm like, yeah, it is. Pretty hairy one.
Right.
So look, other people have talked to me about wild people living out in the woods and all this stuff, and Indians, possibly Native American people. It wasn't that. Now, we don't know that it possibly could be wild people. I mean, who knows? I don't know if this is, somebody knows about this, but, that's not really being offered. So we just have to make our own decisions on what we believe based on what we've seen and what we feel, and I always go by my gut feeling. And it's not about me. It's not about money. It's not about anything. It's just about what's true. I'm a truther. Mm-hmm. I've taught that. My dad taught me that,
There's a, are you okay if I bring up how this affected, or ask questions about how this affected you emotionally and mentally afterwards? Is that okay?
For sure, man.
Okay.
Because, dude, you've done enough shows. That what it does to people. Some people, it traumatizes them so bad. And can you imagine the ones that have passed because of it?
Right.
I can see where somebody would just want to wash this down and I can see that. So, but you got to talk to people about it. And there's always light in everything, Jeremiah. So, look, it wasn't violent. It was an education. Why I was chosen to see this, I don't know. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe it's just luck, or maybe bad luck. I don't know. But, you know, I've learned to deal with it. But trying to express that to other people that are believers but not knowers, you know the difference. When you're a knower, you've seen something, and nobody can take that from you. They can say some stuff, maybe hurt your feelings, or, you know, but I don't second guess myself anymore. I'm not a stupid person. You know, I shouldn't say stupid, ignorant. I learn things that I don't need to learn. Me working, I have my shop. No one's here. I listen and educate myself every day on podcasts and truth channels and stuff. And some of it you got to learn how to decipher, you know, because it can be a little weird. But I've been doing it for years. I started back when podcasts weren't cool. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
When they just started. And, you know, I've done a few, but it helped me. But I learned a whole lot more, especially, you know, people that have gotten some crazy sightings. So there's a lot of diversity in this. It's not just one thing. It's in people, you know, like, oh, you know, there's probably 300 or 400 of them. I think there's thousands.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely thousands at least. Yeah. Yep.
And we've never really been told how much land there is in this country and Canada and stuff, in the land bridges and the mountainous. And you just can't go into these places. These things, they climb up vertical walls like nothing. So, you know, they've made a life out of hiding, and they're good at it. And, you know, kudos to them. You know, I think they should be protected nationally, but we need to be protected, it seems like now.
Well,
got nothing to do with it.
That's for sure. Yeah, that's some pretty wild stuff. Was there a way then that you were able to overcome that anxiety that came about due to this?
Yeah, drinking a lot of beer.
Sure.
That's just a joke.
Gotcha.
I'm a country boy, man. You know,
okay.
We do beers every now and then, but look.
Yeah.
No, I just dealt with it. And I dealt with it through listening and learning about them. And once I realized they're real, I said, okay, so I'm still going to be paranoid when I'm in the woods, meaning that I'm, you know, aware of things. What helped me, Jeremiah, is knowing when I go in the woods, if I see stacked rocks, if I see bent over trees, if I see stumps sticking out of the ground upside down, if I see X's, if I see teepees, which I've seen before, I don't know where, but I've seen stuff like that. And you always think turkey hunter or whatever. But those are the signs that these creatures leave. And what they're saying, you know, I don't know. I would interpret it as, you know, this is my area, you know, better watch out or don't come on here. So yeah, it has helped me. But talking about it brings up a certain level of anxiety.
Yeah.
And the only way I can really describe it to people is, and you're going to find this amusing, I think, is when you first go out on stage, that first song, because you don't want to mess up. I'm like a perfectionist. Everything has got to be perfect for me. And I'm very hard on myself. And of course, that's why I make bows. And yeah, so that's you're on edge. And I've found in my life that when you're on edge like that, you run your life better. You're alert, your senses, your gut feelings, your intuitions, everything becomes alive. You know, you listen to that. And that's my belief. So when I'm in the woods, I'm not just like, you know, I'm looking around, I'm smelling, I'm hearing, I'm listening to the animals, I'm looking at the ground, I'm looking at the trees, everything. You know, I look up in the trees. So, yeah. Now, call it paranoia or call it just being a great observing well. I don't know, but yeah. But it has helped me though.
That's good to hear. I don't think it's paranoia. I think it's you're aware of what's out there now, and you're more prepared and observant, as you said, to just be prepared for something. After you had this situation in Florida, did anything out of the ordinary start to happen in your house or any other locations, or is this not a thing where you've had to deal with things like that?
Nope. Not that I can ever imagine. The only thing, no. You know, I've never, not that I don't believe in stuff like that. I just don't go looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a pretty spiritual person. I'm not very religious, but I'm very spiritual. I believe in the Creator, and you know, if I've done bad, I try to apologize for my actions. And I believe the Creator is in our hearts, you know, and you have to apologize to yourself. So, you know, as far as evil or funky stuff, lights, infrasound, no, I've never heard any of that. Or saw. Never seen a UFO that I've seen some weird stuff, but nothing that I could say, wow, that was an orb, a UFO. Or I did have one thing happen to me one time, but I think it was a meteor here in Indiana. I was in a tree stand. This is before the sighting. No. This is not before the sighting. This is way after. I was sitting in my tree stand, and I went out early, about 4 a.m. And I wanted to get there before, you know, the deer started to move through this area. And all of a sudden, this green light goes through the woods. It freaked me out. And I couldn't see the actual light. It's just this light went through the woods, and it was green. Really fast. And that was it. So I said, wow, that was a meteor. I didn't hear it. See, that's the thing. I didn't hear, you know, or a boom or anything like that. So I just saw that. That's the only thing I've ever really seen that made me think, whoa. Now, of course, I was in an earthquake out here one time. That's another, well, I guess it ain't a story. I was in a blind on the ground, not too far from the house. And all of a sudden, the ground starts feeling like jelly. It's moving. And I'm looking down thinking something's trying to get out of the ground. Like, you know, Goonies, those worms that come out or something. And, oh, man, I could feel that gut feeling. You know that gut feeling when you're scared?
Oh, yeah.
That's what happened. And my feet, I could see everything moving. And I'm like, what is this? Because I've never been anything like it. So I didn't see anything. I went back to the house. Pops goes, do you feel that earthquake? It shook the whole house. I said, I was wondering what that was. Because I thought it was giant worms under the ground. He looked at me and laughed. So, but no, I don't think I've seen anything that's or heard anything that is related to that.
That's
really
great.
Jerry, I don't want to.
Right.
You know, I don't want to be freaked out anymore. I'm good with what I know. Now, would I want to see one? I would like to be friends with one and trust it. And, you know, like I hear some people have relationships with these things, you know, distant type. But do I want that to happen? No, I think I'm too old for it. I don't know I'll be able to handle it, you know. So I think I'm safe here now.
Absolutely. Steve,
well,
this has been just a really fascinating conversation. I do mean it. It's very unique in my opinion. thinking over all the ones that I've heard over the years. I do want to make sure that you were able to share everything that you came to the show today to share.
I just want to thank my parents and my father for teaching me things. My dad's 90 and he's old and he's failing, and so it's going to come a time he's going to leave us. But he did a good job. Whether he thought he did, I don't know. But he always taught me things. And as you get older, things change. Life becomes more important. Family becomes more important. I'm not a killer, and I've said this before to people. I love animals, and I hate killing. When I kill a deer, it's emotional for me. And I like to hunt. I do. But I don't like to kill animals. So I guess what I'm saying is when you get older, you mellow out a little bit, and you're more acceptive of time and what's about to happen, and all that stuff. So I'm just happy I had the experiences that I've had, and I was given the chance to see something weird like that. And I'm blessed with the talents that I've been given, that I've polished over my careers, and I'm very thankful. I don't have a lot. I'm still working, but I love what I do. I love where I am. And I enjoy doing farming and just having a peaceful life. I still hunt. It's not as important to me anymore, but I still enjoy it. And I like to eat deer meat and all that stuff. But I have a big respect for the environment and animals and the place for everybody and the trees. And I just want people to protect what we have, and sometimes you have to stand up and yell at somebody about it because people do weird stuff.
Thank you for coming on the show today. And I think a lot of people are going to learn some things from what you've shared from what happened down in Florida. And definitely, keep in touch if anything else happens to you while you are out hunting in Indiana as well, Stephen.
I will. And it's been my pleasure. And I feel like you and I know each other just because I've been listening to your voice for a long time. And you have a very soothing voice. It's not aggressive, and it's I can see where people open up to you, and kind of like a counselor, Bigfoot counselor.
There you go. Thank you for the kind words, man. It's been a fun time.
Yep, enjoyed it. Jeremiah, you take care of yourself, brother.
You as well, Stephen. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Stephen's story is one of the rare encounters that lingers, not just because of what he saw in the palmettos, but because of how close it came to being something much more. And huge thanks to Stephen for opening up about his years in the Florida swamps and for reminding us that sometimes the unknown is standing right in front of us in the middle of the road. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the show on YouTube, hit the bell icon so you never miss a new episode, and share this one with a friend who's into Bigfoot, the Florida swamps, or just a good mystery. If you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you're following us there. And if you'd leave us a 5-star positive review, it really helps more folks find us. And man, are we... Guys, I just checked the rankings on Apple Podcasts, and it's crazy to think how, we are pretty high up there, and it's all because of you guys listening. I just want to say thank you for that. So that's why it's important for you all to share an episode with your friends, someone who's never heard the show but's into Bigfoot, and sky's the limit. Sky is the limit. If you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter, please send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your story. If you haven't seen the new members community yet, you can check that out over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And click on the members login area. That's where you can get early ad-free episodes, members-only episodes every week, and a lot a lot more fun activities that members get to take part in. So thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Your listening helps make this possible, and your accounts help the truth get out there and more people to come forward. And disclosure is coming, guys. You know it is. Every account gets us closer to disclosure. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there, and see you in the woods.